Hello everyone, welcome back to Merlin's Manor. Today I am going to be unboxing Red Rising, the collector's edition. So let's go ahead and get into this and see what we have in here. First of all, the box looks nice. It's got a little bit of a shine to it. Let's go ahead and open it up. By the way, the collector's edition, you got the print number there out of 15,000. Mine is 13,598. So first thing we have in here is the instructions and the Otama instructions. Baggies. And here are the house cards here to determine which you are. You'll shuffle those up. And you'll pick one at random, and there you are. You also get colors that go with that. We'll get to that in just a moment. Here is the board. Oh, it's got a picture on the back there. Pretty cool artwork. And on the front side there, you got the different houses. There's where your cards are going to go. There's where the helium tokens are going to go, the Institute, and then the fleet track. Oh, this is kind of nice. Scorekeeper. I think there's also an app that you can use for that. Here's the dice. Looks pretty cool. Roll in there. Kind of roll is a little weird. Very heavy dice. And here are the helium tokens. Pretty cool right there. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the resin from Everdell, but it's red instead of amber. And those will go in here. I guess I can put them all in there now. Yeah. And, oh wow, this is a heavy bag. Heavy bag with all the different colors. This is the first player token here. That's pretty cool there. I'll put that right there. And then each bag has all the different units in it here, right here. These are all the cubes for your Institute influence. And here is the fleet tracker for that color. So we got this gold color here. I'm just going to leave those off to the side. We've got, I really like this color. Blue color right there. And one of the differences between the collector's edition and the regular edition is these are metal cubes, and I just really like the look of them. They got a really nice look to them. And really nice heft to them as well. I've heard that the colors are hard, some of the colors are hard to distinguish. So far, these all look, I can tell them pretty well apart. That's probably the hardest one so far, but I can still tell them. These ones, those ones kind of blend a little. I can still tell the difference though. And then we got these ones here. And here we have the Sovereign token. Looks pretty cool there. And we got some cards. Okay, let's see what we got here. Even on, oh, okay, so these are, okay, some Otama related stuff. So I think all this might be Otama related. Yeah, these are some of the Otama related cards. Some back there. So. And then here are all the cards. Get into those in just a second. One other differences between the collector's edition is we got card holders here. So that's a little bit different. You don't get that with the standard retail edition. Let's open these up. Making a mess here. Okay. And so let's take a look at these gold cards first. This is another difference between the collector's edition and the retail edition, is these are like foil on the gold cards here. So let's see if we see anybody cool in here. So here's Mustang. Let's see, Cassius. Pax Al Talamanus. And let me see if I can find. So we got the different colors, of course. We got a red there, a violet, obsidians, the assassins. Let me see if I can find Darrow. Here we go. Here's Darrow, star of the series. And he's a red. There was some controversy over him being a red instead of a gold, but I think it was a good choice to go with red there. Darrow is, after all, red at heart. So yeah. I'm not going to go through all the cards, but there are a good number of them, different colors. And where's this pack too? Well, this one's worth 40 victory points. Negative 30 if any opponent has more helium than you. So only 10 points if somebody else has more helium at the end of the game. So yeah. Some turn cards. So you can kind of know what you do on your turn. And icons. A little aid there. Okay, so here are all the components set up. I put some of the cubes on the Institute there just to show where they go. Here's again that Sovereign token. Here's where the cards are going to go. Here's where all your helium cubes are going to be at. And this is the fleet tracker. You're going to go along there to get victory points as you go along the way. Your thing to roll there. And for first player token, again, here's all the cards to decide which house you're going to be in. And each one has a special ability. And also what's kind of cool about this is whenever you start a game, you're going to get one of these at random, and then whichever color you get are the color of the cubes you're going to get. And so it's kind of a cool little way that they did that. And then here are some of the cards in their card holder. It works really well. You have to be a little bit careful you don't knock it over, but I mean, mainly making this video, I kind of reaching over a little bit more than you would in an actual game. So there we go. We also have the score pad. So all really good quality components. I'm really excited about this game and to get into playing it. Hey guys, I'm back here to review Red Rising. It's been a couple weeks since I did the first half of this video with the unboxing. I decided to hold off on posting the video so I could give you my first impressions as well in this video. And I actually unboxed both Red Rising and Lost Ruins of Arnak on the same day. Lost Ruins has been posted already. And now I'm going to go ahead and give you my first impressions for Red Rising. So this is an interesting game, a pretty good game. I've played it so far 5 times on solo against the Otama. And I've played it on 4-player, I've played it on 3-player, and we even played a 2-player game where we incorporated the Otama into the 2-player game.
And that was pretty interesting. The way we did that was we first player would take a turn, and then Otama would take a turn, then second player would take a turn, then Otama would take a turn. Instead of doing the 2 card pulls at one time, we went ahead and split that between the 2. And it was a very interesting way to play. Now, I've enjoyed playing with the Otama more, I would say, due to the fact that more cards are coming out onto the play. That's one of the big problems, I think, in multiplayer, is that cards tend to get a bit stale because people keep generally grabbing the cards from the board rather than taking their chance as much on the deck. And so when they do that, you wind up with a lot more of a stale kind of thing going on. And so I've noticed that a little bit with the multiplayer. Incorporating Otama into a 2-player game was interesting because you got to get more of those cards out, just like in just a solo mode. Anyway, so let's go ahead and I want to give a few updates on what I've noticed about the components actually playing the game. In my original unboxing, I talked about the fact that I didn't really notice that they were hard to tell between the different colors, like I'd seen in some people talking about it. Actually, in the game, I did notice, particularly with Fleet Tracker, from a distance, sometimes it was a little bit difficult to tell between the purple and the red, as well as between the green and the blue. So that can be a little bit of a problem in the Fleet Tracker. I wouldn't say as much of a problem for the Institute markers, because if you keep all of your cubes in one place on the Institute, you kind of know where your cubes are, and other people can kind of glance and see where each individual groups are a little bit better. But with the Fleet Tracker, if you have them pretty close together, it might be a little bit difficult. They blend a little bit from a distance. If you get up close, you can tell the difference, though. So that's just something I noticed about that. In the unboxing, I even kind of mentioned this a little bit, but the card holders, they do have a little bit it's easy to tip over or knock over the cards, and so they're not the best. I wish there was a little bit deeper of a groove there, or a little bit tighter of a groove, maybe, I don't know, so they would hold them in better. I still use it. All the other players I kind of played with kind of dropped it midway through the first game. But that's just kind of an extra anyway with the collector's edition. Other than that, the components are pretty solid. And another thing I do want to mention, though, is the gold cards. Some people have mentioned that you can somewhat see on the back the word gold up here shining through because of the foil that's on there. I don't find this very easy to tell. I mean, if you are really looking at the deck and trying to decide if it's going to be a gold coming up or some other card, you might be able to see that. We haven't really noticed it during gameplay. You have to kind of really look at it carefully at the right angle. So as long as you're not trying to see if it's going to be a gold card coming up or not, that's not going to be a problem. And that's also only going to be with the collector's edition with that gold foil. I just want to make mention of that since I didn't in my unboxing video. Like I said, the components, other than that, are pretty solid. I really like the metal components, even though the colors kind of... I'd rather have these with the slight difficulty telling the difference between them than the plastic cubes. The metal cubes are just really nice. All the other components are really great as well. So anyway, so that's about the components. First thing I want to mention is the house abilities when it comes to talking about the actual kind of gameplay here. And I want to talk about these because I find there's a little bit of imbalance here. 3 of the ones are kind of created equal. You've got Jupiter, which gives you 1 on the fleet track whenever you get the sovereign token. You've got Mars, which gives you helium whenever you take the sovereign token. And you have Diana, which lets you place 1 on the Institute whenever you take the sovereign token. Those are kind of created equal, which are good. But then I noticed that really Minerva, I felt, was one of the weakest abilities in the game because all you get to do is roll the die when you take it, and it may or may not be something good. If you look at the die, you'll see that you could gain 1 on the fleet track, you could gain the sovereign token, you could gain helium or Institute, which are all kind of on par with the other house abilities. Maybe not so much the Luna token, but that one lets you choose with that power. So any of those are good. But then you could also wind up with just banish a card, which doesn't really do you a lot of good unless you have a card that gives you higher points at the end of the game for the amount of banished cards, which is kind of very niche. Or you could get this one, which allows you to look at a card from top and place it somewhere, which again gets more cards out, but doesn't really help you a lot. Along those lines, also Apollo, the in-game ability is kind of weak for Apollo because of the fact that you are basically just revealing cards for other people probably to take more often than you, because it's going to go all the way around the table before you get a chance to get that, or it may even be buried by the time it comes around to you if nobody else wanted it. And so not very strong power there. But this house is kind of overpowered, I think, when it comes to its other ability, which is you are both the first and last player of the game. And so you get more turns than everybody else, and you also are guaranteed to get that last turn in the game. So you can make sure you grab up that sovereign token at the end, or you can kind of plan a little bit. You know that even if the game ends between your turn and the end of after your turn, you're going to have one more time to go around, and so you may that may change how your strategy is when it's getting close to the end game. Whereas one person might say, "Oh, I need to definitely make sure that I've got all my ducks in a row because it could end." Well, you could be like, "Well, I'll have one more turn to finish that up." And so I think in a way, even though during the game the ability isn't very powerful, the end game is maybe a little overpowered there with the fact that. And the other one that I think Minerva is very underpowered, like I said earlier, because of the fact that you're just getting that random roll. And then the last one I want to talk about is Ceres. And this one is you begin the game with +1 card, so you have an extra card in your hand, and whenever you gain a sovereign token, you banish any one card. Not a very good ability there, unless again you're going for that idea of having more banished cards in the pile, or if you have a card that allows you to get a card from the banished pile, would also be kind of good there. And then at the end of the game, you banish 1 card from your hand. And so you're given an extra card at the beginning of the game, but you're going to be getting rid of that card, or one of the cards. And so that gives you the advantage, though, of having extra cards to figure out what you're going to do throughout the game. And then at the very end, you just go, okay, this one I don't want, and get rid of. So it's kind of interesting power. Definitely not as powerful as Apollo, give or take, whether it's as powerful as the other ones that allow you to gain various things. But anyway, those are the different house powers. I think there's a little bit of imbalance, especially with Apollo being a little bit overpowered with its ability and Minerva being a little underpowered. And then Ceres, I haven't gotten to figure out enough whether I think it's on par with others, or overpowered, underpowered, or I haven't really gotten a chance to play with it enough. Anyway, so that's the house abilities. There's a little bit of imbalance there. But the next thing I want to talk about is the unique gameplay that is very simple. I mean, you are basically deploying a card for its deployability, and so you get whatever that says, and then you pick up another card to put into your hand. It's very simple to do that, and when you're going to want to try and choose the cards to deploy, either based on their ability, what they're going to give you, or because they're a card you don't really want in your hand at the end of the game, and so you want to get rid of that card. Those are your 2 main reasons for which ones you choose to deploy at a given time. And then you're gaining a new card to get that location's bonus, whether it's adding to the influence in the Institute, whether it's getting the sovereign token and your house bonus with that, whether you are grabbing from Mars and getting helium, grabbing from Jupiter and getting its bonus, or if you grab from a random card from the deck and you get to roll and see what you get. That time I just would have gotten a banish card, which isn't very good, which is kind of the chance you take when you draw from the deck. There I would have gotten on the Jupiter track going up 1. It's kind of random. You don't get to get necessarily what you want to get, but if there's no cards you want on there, that's probably your better option, because you might have really good cards sitting here that you can get if you don't like what the other cards are. All things to keep in mind. And so you have to, throughout the game, there's this balance also between using cards for their abilities and holding them for endgame scoring. Especially in some of the abilities relate very well to their endgame scoring. I didn't grab one of my favorite ones, but here's just one as an example here. The endgame ability is to, the in-game ability is to banish the bottom card of this location if it's not this card. And so you're banishing a card, and then you get extra points if you have 5 to 9 banished cards at the end of the game scoring, or 25 extra points if there are at least 10 banished cards. And so, on the one hand, keeping this, if there's, for the fact that there's banished cards over here that you can get points for, or using it to banish more cards so you can get more points out of this card, is one of the tensions there. There are other tensions like that as well, where you move up on the fleet tracker, but the the bonus points are for having higher score on the fleet tracker. And so do you want to get rid of that card, hoping you'll get it back to, once you've had that, gain that bonus of having extras, but then somebody might grab that card up. So do you want to play it for its bonus, or do you want to hold on to it for its end game scoring? Something you have to try and decide as you go along there, and there's a little bit of tension there. It's kind of exciting to try and figure that all out and try to work all that out. So while the gameplay itself is pretty simple, the decision-making process, what to keep, what to deploy, when to do all that, when to deploy certain things, can become complex to maximize your score. And then also, as you go along in the game, you're just going to come to that point where you have to decide, am I satisfied with my hand as it is, and should I just from now on focus on scouting to get the bonuses? Or should I try and play more cards and get more cards in my hand to improve my hand at this point? And also, do you focus on bringing about the end game sooner, or do you delay to get a better hand? And generally, you don't want to rush the end game, because the person that rushes the end game usually isn't going to win the game, because everybody else that's been focusing on getting the right combinations in their hand going to get plenty more points than you're going to get from being having a higher place on different tracks, or having more institute or helium or whatever. And so there's a balance that's going to have to come into that, of course, though. You don't want to spend all your time focusing on your hand and not getting any of those extra bonuses that you need to get those extra points. And at some point, you want to try and get to the end game once you feel you have the best hand that you're going to get, so that somebody else doesn't have more time to get better hand for themselves if they're trying to work out some combinations that haven't quite gelled for them yet. And so there's a lot of decision making as far as that goes, which is pretty interesting, and a lot of strategy that needs to go in there, especially if you aren't dealt with cards that really work together near the beginning. I do think there is some balancing issues as far as luck goes and getting the right cards. You could get the right cards to go really well together, either right in your hand or on the board in the beginning. Or you could be sitting there with nothing really works well together and trying to decide, okay, do I need to rethink my strategy completely and just start from scratch? And if one person gets a really good starting hand and somebody else doesn't, there could be a lot of a big swing there just from luck. But there are plenty of opportunities to get new cards and to reformulate your strategy. So it isn't the end of things if you don't have cards that gel well at the beginning. You can kind of work around that a little bit. So it's not terrible, but there can be a little bit of luck going in there. Also, the ability to get cards that give you extra cards, I think, is probably the biggest balancing issue in this game. You'll have a card like this one, which says, if you have the Sovereign token, gain the bottom card on Luna. That's going to increase your hand from the starting 5 cards to now having 6 cards. Another one here is a Hollow Host. If you have influence on the Institute, if you have more influence on the Institute than the player to your right, give them the Hollow Host, gain the 2 cards of the deck, then end your turn. So you're getting extra, you're ending your turn on that one, so you're only going to get an extra 1 card out of that. And somebody else is getting an extra card too, in a sense, so it's not too bad. But you're both now going to have 6, and somebody else is still going to have 5, unless they do something else. Banker is another one. You may pay 3 helium to gain any card from this location. And so you're getting to choose any card on a location. It could be even one that's buried deep in there. You get an extra card now. Let's say you've done a couple of these now. You have 7 cards in your hand, while everybody else may still have 5. Or somebody may get 1 banished even. There's a card here that says, choose an opponent. They banish one of their cards. And so now that person's down to 4 cards. And you may have gotten something that's gotten you up to 7 or 8 cards. And maybe somebody else makes them banish another card. Now they're down to 3. And so, and just having a few extra cards, even 1 or 2 extra cards, gives you a major advantage. It doesn't always give you the full advantage. And of course, after you get above 7, you're going to be deducting 10 points, which kind of balances it a little bit. But you still got the idea that somebody didn't manage to get any extra cards in their hand, and you've got 7 or 8 cards. Even if you're getting 10 points off for having 8, you're still going to have a much better chance of winning the game, unless they just have cards that go way better together and get those more bonuses. And so there's a little bit of a balancing issue in there, especially since you can't always get more cards. There's only a handful of those cards in there that allow you to do that. And so, it just depends on if those come up and you're able to grab those cards or not, and then be able to use those cards effectively as well, because they have different conditions as well. And so this is just something to keep in mind. And then here's another one that gives you some extra, possibly. name 3 colors and reveal the top card of this deck. If it matches a color you named, gain it and banish the card, otherwise banish the revealed card. And at the end of the game, you name 1 non-gold color, reveal 7 cards from the top of the deck, gain all cards of that color. Now, you're not going to gain a whole lot out of that, but even if you just gain a couple cards, even if you just gain 1, you're getting an extra card out of it. And so that's something to think about, is that, you know, those cards that give you those extra ones, you need to really kind of focus on making sure you take advantage of those when you get the chance, because those are going to give you probably way more points than advancing something on the track, or getting more resources, sometimes even more than just getting the bonus on a card. And so you need to keep that in mind. So there's a little bit of a balance there. If people aren't able to get more than 5 cards in their hand, they're going to be at a struggle with those that have gotten 2 or 3 extra cards. And so that's something to keep in mind there. Just a little bit of a balance there. But again, that's part of the strategy too. Making sure that you can take advantage of those things when they come up. Anyway, so I've actually enjoyed this game on all modes. I think the Otama mode is especially strong. And playing the Otama at 2 players is especially strong because, like I said earlier, in multiplayer games, sometimes those the cards that are down on the table can get a little stale. People keep grabbing the same cards and putting them back down rather than going to the deck and getting new cards as much. Whereas the Otama always puts out 2 new cards and then grabs 2 cards. They may grab the card they already put out, or they may not. They may grab one of the ones that's already down there. Now you've got an extra card out there that wasn't there before. And so that's kind of keeps things a little bit from getting stagnant. And so I enjoyed playing with Otama both solo and on 2-player mode. I wouldn't recommend putting it in for above 2 players just because where you are going to be drawing those cards for Otama, you don't want to draw more than 2 cards between turns. Overpower the Otama a bit and also cause a little bit issues there, I think. And you wouldn't necessarily want certain people always having the Otama going before them and possibly wrecking their things just by chance, or even just going before them and giving them extra card. You know, it would be a balancing issue, I think, if you did it for more than a 2-player game. So Red Rising, I wasn't blown away by it, but it is a game that I have enjoyed, and it's got some great components to it, and it's definitely going to be one I'm going to be keeping in my collection and bringing out a decent bit, even if it's just for playing the Otama, because I think it's a great solo experience. And so it's definitely one that I enjoy. It's not going to make a top 10 list, but it is a game that was definitely going to stay around for me. It may not be everybody's cup of tea. You know, the balancing issues and the luck that's involved at times may turn you off from this game. But it's a game I enjoy and would recommend checking out. Thanks again for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit that like button, subscribe to see more videos, and I will catch you in the next one.